Welcome to Tate Britain and a very special series. I'm Gus Casely-Hayford, cultural historian and unabashed art fanatic.
Joseph Herman is such an important figure.
And I'm going to take you on a journey into the scenes of some of our most loved landscape paintings.
We are right in Constable country.
And I'm not alone. I'm going to be joined by some of our nation's living treasures.
She's more interested in him because of his money.
How dare you assume that?
We're going to walk in the artist's footsteps, revealing their views.
Look at that.
Inspirations.
Now that, of course, is just utterly absurd.
And secrets.
Jeez.
So, sit back and enjoy the walk. Or better still, why not follow in our footsteps?
Oh, bugger it. Why was I born so short?
Today, I want to take you into a painting that is part landscape, part portrait, and all about us. It's a painting full of characters, real and fictional, that look out to us, the viewer, and say, this is who we are. Righteous, criminal, drunken, poor, rich, hungry, and greedy. We are the British, and this is the Epsom Derby. Painted by Victorian artist William Powell Frith in 1858, it captures a place and a people that have barely changed in 160 years. More than a walk, this is going to be an experience, and joining me is the great actor Simon Callow.
And in his work as a writer on Dickens, he's explored that part of our history with great detail, but also with a huge amount of passion. And Powell Frith he's an extraordinary artist. I think, in a way, he is somewhat like Simon Callow's great hero, Charles Dickens. He captures Victorian Britain with all of its complexity and its detail. This is going to be a journey into the world of Simon Callow, but also of mid-Victorian Britain and William Powell Frith.
For most, Simon Callow is a rambunctious presence of stage and screen. But he's also a world-renowned Dickens scholar, and that's the reason I want to go on this Victorian journey with him. Powell Frith and Dickens were close friends. This portrait of the great writer was painted by Frith himself, and both were hugely popular within and fascinated by the Victorian society that they captured so well.
Nice place you have here.
Nice to see you. Over here is an artist who he adored.
Yes, as a man and as a painter.
Yes. William Powell Frith.
Yeah.
This is one of the most loved paintings of the Victorian era, depicting one of the most popular events of the time, Derby Day. Frith became fascinated by this cultural phenomenon, attracting all strands of society, which he considered to be a microcosm of Victorian life. Art critics at the time were a bit sniffy about his art, and some people still are today, but his paintings were real blockbusters, which captured the popular imagination. Even Queen Victoria rushed to see Derby Day and became really fond of Frith's art, so much so that later she commissioned him to paint her son, the Prince of Wales's wedding.
By the time that this was first shown at the Royal Academy, so many people came to see it. They had to hire a policeman to push people away, and people were fighting to get to see it. It was said that you had to spend at least an hour in front of this painting to even begin to get a sense of it. And I think in part what people liked, and this was ordinary people, it wasn't the usual RA visitors, was that it did have danger and jeopardy. It was just like London streets.
It's a fine achievement. It's
Yes.
an astonishing achievement. The organisation of it is phenomenal. But if you actually look at it a little closely, everything seems very becalmed. I mean, the acrobat has done his trick, so there's no danger of it going wrong. They're not posing for it, but he's frozen the frame.
I actually think that there is a lot of kind of dynamism in the painting. This chap here, for instance, he's just been fleeced and he's staring out at us, looking kind of utterly bemused. And behind, the three other people in the crowd that he thought were just innocent bystanders, they're now looking at his watch chain and his cufflinks that they've all taken off him. And so all of these things are kind of resonating across the surface of this painting.
Well, they do if you know.
Yes.
If you don't know, it's less resonant, for me anyway.
I actually think that it creates the opportunity of saying that painting can be about issues that impact you and I. And I think for someone coming in the 1850s to see this, they would have been pretty shocked.
What sounded to me like real jeopardy was your description of the audience pressing forward to try and see it and kicking each other out of the way. I like that. For me, hasn't endured as a masterpiece. It's just a fantastically skillful and very informative canvas, but you want something else from art than that, don't you?
Well,
you want to be stirred in your subconscious, and it isn't stirring in the subconscious.
I see this as round one. Okay.
So let's go and explore Simon's favourite part of Victorian London, the world of Charles Dickens. And I'll be looking along the way for similarities between the two men, in the hope that I convince Simon of the merits of Frith as an artist. This is round 2. Our first walk will take us through the busy streets of London's Covent Garden and Soho to discover the urban landscape which inspired Dickens and Frith. We'll start in Simon's second home, London's Theatreland, a bustling area where Dickens and Frith would have scouted some of their favourite characters. We'll pass the Theatre Royal Drury Lane and the Royal Opera House, and we'll carry on through the lively market of Covent Garden, where Frith set his 1862 painting Morning. And finally, we'll venture through the dark alleyways of Soho to explore the margins of society which Frith and Dickens introduced to the Victorian middle classes through art and the written word.
So this is really Dickens' land. Every single day of his life, he said, for 10 years, he went to see a play.
Really?
And sometimes 2 or 3 a day, yeah. He adored them. Have a care. Let's go, let's go.
Frith loves this area, and he actually paints the first in a series of 3 paintings are based around Covent Garden.
Right.
Morning, noon and night are the series, but the first one of the market opening up and the flower girls and all of that sort of thing.
This, of course, was one of the 2 great houses, and the theatre in the Haymarket were the 3 great royal theatres. And it was, again, like all theatres in the 19th century, constantly burning down. And it was once owned by Sheridan, the great playwright Sheridan. And as it burnt down, he sat in a pub opposite. Someone said, "Aren't you a little excited about this?" And Sheridan said, "I suppose a man may be allowed to drink a glass of wine in front of his own fire." But anyway.
Because Powell Frith comes here and he sees some acrobats.
And
he uses them in his painting, or he tries to. Because when he poses them, they keep turning somersaults. So he buys their costumes, then puts them onto models. But this was obviously the place to come. It's one of my favourite buildings, the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden. Also, this is a place that Verdi's La Traviata was shown, and Frith came and he was transfixed by it. And on that right-hand shoulder of the painting, there is a narrative that's playing out of a fallen woman, the Traviata. I think in that period, in the 1850s, there is this idea of the loss of the virtue of a woman. and or her somehow getting decoupled from her family and society.
Yeah.
Let's use
I'm resolute. You're describing...
A whole day.
So that's the sort of thing that, I mean, would have been going on all the time.
So this could be London 1850.
Totally.
And did he enjoy it, do you think? He loved the streets?
He loved the streets.
But you see, that's where I think he's like Frith. I think Frith would have loved this scene.
Yes, they had the same tastes.
He's just a very sensitive, open man and chooses not to paint beautiful, bucolic scenes.
Yeah.
But he wants to do something which is edgy. And that's what I think is a little bit like Dickens, that these were popular things for the populace.
But it comes from such a different place inside the individual. Because Dickens wants to recreate the world completely. He's so angry with the world as it is.
Yes, and you think that he gets all the filth and the grime from the streets and he kind of renders it onto the page with a degree of kind of integrity that possibly Powell Frith doesn't.
I don't know about integrity, but you might say possibly authenticity.
Authenticity.
It comes from a very personal, deep place inside. This is, of course, where the Dryden, who was later the poet laureate, was beaten up.
Oh, really?
This alley,
So I haven't convinced you.
No.
But have you softened at all? I mean, have I made anything
You
of the
made me
case?
very, very interested in Frith, and I'm going to find out more about him. I just didn't know anything about him as a man, I have to say.
To really understand the edges of society which Frith and Dickens were so drawn to, these streets really need to be walked alone and at night. And so it's time for me to leave Simon and to experience Frith's old stomping ground, the night underworld, which clearly hasn't changed that much since Victorian times. I'll start at Seven Dials, walk up Shaftesbury Avenue into the heart of Soho, and finish at Haymarket, where theatregoers are still spilling out onto the street, just like in Frith's 1862 painting, Night.
This is Seven Dials. In Dickens' day, this was not a place that you would want to come. Dickens described wandering into one of these tenements and seeing people laid out on the floor. It was like looking at maggots on cheese. And Powell Frith used walking as a way of hunting out subjects for his canvases. He was down on these streets looking for people who would fit into Derby Day. And when you look around, you can get a sense of how a city like this would have been really, really rich pickings. Right here, this is the scene of one of Powell Frith's most dramatic paintings, Night. Powell Frith had the ability to capture that energy, that crackle of a crowd, and he did it to an audience who understood the power of the crowd.
I'm in London, following in the footsteps of the great Victorian painter, William Powell Frith, and exploring the political and social backdrop of his 1858 sensation, Derby Day. A painting that captures a society very much comparable with today's. But you can't really understand Victorian society without looking at the British Empire. So our second walk will take us around Victorian London, through the echoes of the old British Empire, to understand who Frith was as a man and also the world he lived in. We'll start in Notting Hill, the area where Frith lived with his family, and we'll head towards Buckingham Palace via Hyde Park and the Wellington Arch to reach the Mall and Clubland. We'll stroll past the Royal Academy, which Frith became a member of in 1837. We'll grab a pork pie from Fortnum & Mason before ending in Regent Street, where he based his 1862 painting, Noon.
This is Notting Hill, in one of the most beautiful parts of London. And this is where William Powell Frith, at the height of his fame, buys a house. He was a real family man. And you can see that if you look at his paintings. He puts his children lovingly into so much of his work.
With 12 children and a loving wife, you think that would be enough. Apparently not. Only a few streets away, and at the same time, Frith had a second house. And in it,
a family of a further 7 children. William Powell Frith, always full of surprises.
Apparently, Mrs. Frith's suspicions were first aroused when she saw her husband in the street posting a letter when he was meant to be away for work. The letter was in fact for her, telling her he was having a lovely time in Brighton.
We're just a few blocks from where Powell Frith lived. I have a feeling that this church, St. Matthew's, is the basis of one of his paintings, For Better or For Worse. It's a great painting. It's a celebration of marriage. But there is a certain irony. This man who had affairs sired 20 children by 2 different women. The irony of him celebrating marriage, that really is something.
Frith was a shameless flirt, and the idea of men having affairs was really common at the time. But the duality between what went on in people's private lives and the front they would give to society characterised the Victorians, who were never short on hypocrisy. And look to the left of the canvas. As so often in his paintings, Frith represents the wealthy rubbing shoulders with the less fortunate. They may well live side by side, but everyone knows exactly where they stand socially. These reflections and comments on society are at the very heart of his art. Having grown up in a family of hoteliers in Harrogate in Yorkshire, he became an avid social observer. The Victorian society he lived in was changing so rapidly, he was compelled to document it. We're now leaving Notting Hill through Hyde Park to discover the political backdrop of this changing Victorian society, right into the heart of Imperial London.
You might miss this arch if you're travelling around this roundabout in the centre of London. But this is possibly the symbol of empire, the Wellington Arch. And if you want to do a walk dedicated to empire, this is the place to start. The British Empire, this is bigger than Greece or Rome. This is the biggest empire the world has ever seen. And for empires to work, they need their symbols. I mean, have a look at this. The 2 sides of the empire represented so beautifully. On the one side, the mother, tender, loving, caring. On the other side, Victoria, Regina, looking down the Mall at everything she rules over. Look at this, I've got the Mall to myself. I mean, it's really worth getting up early, but it's also really worth getting out and walking in London and just seeing it for the beautiful city that it really is.
And if you find yourself in London, I'd really urge you to do this glorious walk and look out for the signs of our history and identity. They're everywhere.
Look at that. You enjoying it?
Yes, it's a nice city, London.
Yes?
Yes, I like it. Yes.
And have you walked all the way up the Mall and have you seen the changing of the guards?
More in Windsor Castle.
Windsor Castle?
Yes, there we go tomorrow, and there is changing of the guard.
And what do you think of the royal family?
Oh, yes, it's not 100% democracy, I think.
We're continuing our walk towards Pall Mall, into London's clubland. We'll then carry on towards the Royal Academy and Regent Street, discovering along the way the many institutions, places and people that featured in Derby Day and his other social paintings.
After the tranquility of the royal parks, I'm now back in the hubbub, Pall Mall.
London's clubland is home to the infamous Reform Club, which was founded in 1836 and was at the forefront of social reforms. Its members were the liberal intelligentsia, and in Derby Day, Frith shows them as the privileged few in his panorama of Victorian sociology wearing top hats. However, he places the club tent next to the gamblers and the Thimbleriggers and implies that even if they are respectable members of society, they've come to the Derby to misbehave and be led astray.
This beautiful Italianate building is the Royal Academy, the absolute heart of the art establishment. And William works for years to try to become an academician, and eventually he is granted that opportunity. But he never quite feels like he is really part of this organisation. In one of his great paintings, he captures a private view here, and it's all of the great and the good.
But Frith's purpose was not just to paint the great and the good. He also wanted to criticise what he described as the self-elected critics in matters of taste, the types of art snobs who had an obsession with aesthetics and would have frowned upon his paintings. One recognisable figure amongst the crowd is Oscar Wilde, who'd been sarcastic both verbally and in print about Frith's art. Here Frith takes revenge by placing Oscar Wilde in the middle of his demi-monde. We're now making our way towards Regent Street, away from the airs and graces of the Royal Academy and back to the subject matter Frith cared about most, the daily lives of ordinary people.
And the Victorians have left us so much, but one of the most curious is the picnic and the contents of the picnic, the glorious pork pie. And it was here in Fortnum and Mason that the picnic, in the way that we understand it, in the little hamper, was popularised in the mid-Victorian period. And in that Powell Frith painting, you see the little gypsies looking on at a picnic from a distance, longingly. And these pork pies, I mean, they are pretty glorious. £7 a pop. You get a sense of this being way beyond the means of the average person. Pretty good. Pretty good.
And that's the brilliance of Frith, to choose something as innocuous as a pork pie to illustrate the divides of money and class in society.
We're going to end our walk here on Regent Street. And this is the scene of Powell Frith's noon. And what he captured here wasn't the grand stuff that we've seen today. It wasn't the establishment's view that we've seen today. It was ordinary people going about their lives, the ordinary people that make London work.
Simon Callow and I are revisiting the Victorian era through the eyes of William Powell Frith, who captured the complexities of its changing society in his 1858 painting, Derby Day. Frith's interest in all layers of society drew him to places where people from all backgrounds would mix. His favourite subjects to paint were street scenes and train stations and any events gathering big crowds. The art world at the time may have found his subject matters a bit mundane, but they allowed Frith to make telling social comments, and his paintings always created real sensations. We're the birth of the middle classes and the development of the railway lines, the Victorians started travelling to the seaside, a place where Frith decided to paint his first crowd scene, Ramsgate Sands. So, let's hop on the train to Ramsgate on the Kentish coast to follow in the footsteps of Powell Frith and discover what remains of its Victorian past.
I think there's some of the things that Powell Frith was trying to reflect in his own painting of a society that was both going through a period of change, but at the same time that there were underpinning rules that meant that it felt very safe. Because what he contributes is something really significant in helping us to think about the sociology of Victorian Britain. And it's a sociology that we are still, in some way, impacted by, because it's about class, it's about Britishness.
After the railway reached Ramsgate in 1846, the town rapidly became a popular destination for day trips from London. In 1853, Frith came here on holiday, and he was immediately inspired. Here was a mix of social classes, of ages and sexes, without all the social barriers that so characterised the time. And he was determined to capture modern-day life in all of its normality. My third walk will start at the dramatic Pegwell Bay, will take me towards Ramsgate Harbour, a place that inspired major artists and attracted holidaymakers from all levels of society, including a young Princess Victoria. And I'll end at the exact beach where Powell Frith set Ramsgate Sands. Many artists came here and were inspired by the splendid views, including Turner, Tissot, and also a young Van Gogh, who spent time in Ramsgate as an art teacher. It's time for me to make my way down to Ramsgate Beach. But before I do that, I need to get changed. But don't worry, I won't be putting my Speedos on. Rather, an authentic Victorian outfit.
This is the site of William Powell Frith's Ramsgate Sands. And I'm really excited because I'm here to meet Lee and the Victorian Society, and we're going to try to recreate this painting. Hello, Lee, lovely to see you. It's just down there, isn't it?
Can I have a lady in white, please? The little girl. Can we have a little group of you all standing round here? Now, if you've all got parasols, can you put them up? If you've got modern glasses on, can you take them off? And anything else that's modern, can you hide, please?
William Powell Frith is actually in the painting, hidden right over on the right-hand edge of the canvas.
You might be wondering why the sea doesn't feature more prominently in the painting. Well, Frith admitted having trouble painting it and asked another artist to help.
Pick up your skirt like this and go like that.
You know what? We're meant to be over here. I'm really sorry. I'm the worst choreographer in the world. I think this is roughly the centre of the picture, looking at it. I'm sorry about that. When it was shown at the Royal Academy, the Queen came to see it and she adored it. And she immediately tried to purchase it. It had been bought already by a dealer, but she complained so much that the dealer sold it to her for the same price. But the art world, well, they didn't take to it so much. One artist called it a tissue of vulgarity. But that only helped to reaffirm Powell Frith's reputation as a painter that spoke to the people. Everybody say cheese!
Away from the tranquility of Ramsgate Beach, a new day starts on Epsom Downs, where Frith painted his 1858 Derby Day. It might look very peaceful, but we're only hours away from the start of this year's Epsom Derby. Since its creation in 1780, the Epsom Derby has become a bit of a national institution, still attracting huge crowds, including the Queen. In Frith's day, the event was a national holiday, taking place on a Wednesday. Parliament would grind to a halt, and the whole of London emptied into Epsom for the day. All classes of society converged here. Some would come by train, but the less fortunate would walk, here and back. It's 9 a.m, and Simon Callow's waiting for me by Tattenham Corner Station, and the excitement of the Derby is about to begin.
Simon, Mr. Whippy?
They've changed since I was a boy. Look at these, what have they got? Screwballs. Bubblegum deluxe.
Well, maybe later on.
For me, baby.
The race hasn't started yet, but there's already a frisson of Britishness in the air. Epsom Downs is the exact location of our painting, and it's only 20 miles from central London. Amazingly, it's on public land, so everyone can walk alongside the world-famous course. Our fourth walk will take us around the Epsom Derby, starting at the Royal Enclosure, through the public stand, across the track, to finally arrive on the fairground where Frith set his painting. We've been given special access to walk here today, but you can do this walk any other day of the year.
I did a play about Epsom Downs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the 70s with joint stock by Howard Brenton. It's called Epsom Downs. And I played about 10 characters, including a horse, naked, a bookmaker called Les Backshaker. The best review I ever had in my life was from The Sporting Life, which said that I played Les Backshaker as if I'd been a bookie all my life.
We're making our way to the public stand to meet Simon Spilsbury, a man who likes nothing more than celebrating the funnier side of people. And where better to do that than the Epsom Derby? Like Frith, Simon will immerse himself in the crowds and base his piece on real people. Derby Day was no small undertaking for Frith. It took him 2 years to accomplish. Simon, however, only had an afternoon to observe and a few weeks to realise his homage. Because we've been trying our best to kind of get into Powell Frith's shoes, but I mean, you're going to help us to see it through an artist's eyes.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm going to be looking more for the ugly in people, I think. That's the bit that excites me the most. You know, when the rich and the beautiful kind of start going downhill by the glass.
So over the course of
which is going to happen.
Of course it is. So horse fancying as such is not necessarily the key aspect of the day.
I think it's more of a parade.
Yeah.
I think people parade in the sense that people are getting dressed up specifically to be here.
Yeah.
And it kind of induces this different behaviour than than the behaviour they used to.
But it's a great British genius for turning anything into a piss-up, isn't it?
Simon Callow and I were immersing ourselves in the modern-day version of Powell Frith's crowded landscape painting, Derby Day. We're walking around the legendary Epsom racetrack, observing the crowds along the way. 160 years later, the event is still a fantastic snapshot of Britain in one place. It attracts a glorious mix of the well-heeled and the down at heel. So let's go and meet them all.
Have a good day, sweetheart. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Now look, this is lucky, isn't it?
Yes, it is lucky.
But why is it lucky? Why is heather lucky?
It's from a gypsy culture.
Yeah.
It's come through the gypsy culture.
But what is it, I mean, why do you know it's lucky?
But that's our belief.
Yeah, OK. And has it proved true for you?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
It's work.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
it's work.
a friend of mine, Sylvie, when she wished him to the 125,000, and he won it on what was that programme?
Doesn't matter. But that's why you come here
We come
to the
here.
races,
Yes,
because
yes.
people are looking for luck.
That is what they believe in.
They believe in the gypsy luck.
And who's going to do it when you're not doing it anymore?
Well, we'll bring our youngsters up to
Our
do
children.
And this is what helps to keep it alive.
No, I'm really interested in this.
Ever. If you put it in your mind and you really believe in it, it do.
You've got to believe in it.
You've got to believe.
Yeah, you've got to believe.
And
it's going to be lucky.
You can
to
put
you,
that
it will
wish,
be.
make 3 wishes on that, and it will come
and then
true.
wishes will come true.
Meanwhile, artist Simon Spilsbury is on the hunt for faces to include in his very own version of Derby Day. Frith featured both recognisable figures and social stereotypes, including Thurtle, the Elstree murderer, the innocent girl standing in the Pyramid of Virtue next to the child acrobat, or the Victorian spiv, responsible for the downfall of the woman behind. There might not be murderers here today, but the crowd is still rich pickings for Simon.
Are you a married gentleman?
I am.
A good wife who thinks the world of you?
Not always.
She has a mind and she has a way of her own. Close your hand and make a wish, sir.
He's only doing the act.
Frith had no interest in the race itself. In fact, he got a specialist equine artist to paint the horses for him. But it's midday, the race is about to start, and I can't resist getting closer to the action.
Wings of Desire, please. 20 quid, thank you. Thank you.
I think I'm going Humphrey Bogart.
And where's that Scottish lady? Here you are. Yes.
John, where are you, baby? You can kiss me if you want.
If you find yourself at any British horse race, I urge you to observe the crowds. This is where the drama really is.
I'm doing okay.
Oh, you love.
I can't even see Wings of Desire. I can't even see your boy.
I think he's right at the back.
Oh no, look, who's this coming right from the back?
That's it, that's Frankie. Yes! Yes!
Look at that.
Nowhere in sight.
Nowhere in sight. Wings of bloody desire. So who won?
I have no idea. But it wasn't Wings of Desire, and it wasn't Humphrey Bogart.
So much for Charlotte. We were sad.
No, we didn't believe. As Charlotte said,
I did believe.
If you don't believe,
I
so
bloody
I'm
believe.
blaming you,
It's
Simon.
the last
It's
time
obviously
I'm ever
your
going to
fault.
believe again. That's an end of belief for me.
We're coming to the end of our day at the Epsom Derby, and we're reaching our final destination, the fairground, where Frith painted Derby Day. And this is the last round of my debate with Simon about Frith's painting.
So we've done it. We walked in the steps of William Powell Frith.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is the view that he chose.
This is the view. Have you felt it? Are you feeling any closer to William Powell Frith? Are you in any way convinced by this painting?
Well, I'm not... My position remains the same, basically, but I do admire the way in which he actually assembled the whole thing.
Yes.
That he really did choose a representative group of human beings at a very remarkable institution, which remains a remarkable institution. It's extraordinary, alive and crazy place with all sorts of odd people wandering about, just as he represented. I still, I'm afraid, have my reservations about the success with which he captured the life of the place. I'm interested to know whether in 1856, when it was actually painted, that people mingled quite to the degree that he has them doing so, because they don't here, that's for sure. So what he's done is to create a sort of collage of various aspects of the day and put them all into one tableau, which is perhaps where he actually goes wrong, in my view.
But I think he's doing something bigger than just capturing the scene, because a lot of the people who are the main protagonists in that painting, that they're actually going through difficulties. They're actually being challenged. The small boy at the front who's looking at the Fortnum and Mason hamper longingly, that he, if anything, is the central focus. It is about choices, about moral choices that we make in the face of life's vicissitudes. And the idea that this boy, young boy, innocent boy, he has choices. What Powell Frith is trying to instill in him are the kinds of options that he's hoping are open also to the person viewing, that we make choices. And I think that that's why there are sentinels in that painting, people who look out at us, and they're asking us, you are part of this.
Yes.
You have choices
I think
too.
you're right. I think that's exactly his method, and I think it doesn't work.
Well, I don't think I've succeeded in convincing Simon Callow of the merits of Frith's Derby Day, a painting which, to my mind, asks the questions of who we are, where we've come from, and where we're destined to go. But the journey doesn't end here for me. Simon Spilsbury is about to unravel his own take on Derby Day.
Gus.
Hi,
how are you doing?
Lovely to see you. And this is, oh my.
Is that what you expected?
I had no idea what to expect. It's magnificent.
You were there.
I was there. But not in your head, obviously. This is incredible.
Not many people are in my head.
You need help. Tell me, talk me through it. I mean, I recognise bits of it, because of course.
Basically, it's that whole mix of the clash of the classes. And I wanted it to be a bit more of a circus. Because actually, when we got there, after we were discussing this painting and it's, you know, the classes are all mixing together, I looked at it and I thought, well, maybe they're not really.
I love it. I absolutely adore it.
And if you notice, there's kind of homage to racing in the corner there.
Oh, of course. Just like Frith, the actual race is happening in the background. Right. It's bordering on kind of chaos and confusion, but at the same time that everyone knows their place and it's all kind of a kind of faux gentility.
There are varying degrees of chaos. I think the first chaos for me was when the bus pulled up in the morning at 9 o'clock and they were absolutely hammered. And they were falling around, you know, with the 4-pack.
And I think it's very appropriate that on the side of the bus is the Union flag, because I think this is such a British tradition and the way in which we kind of approach these things, that, you know, if the French did it, that people wouldn't be getting blind drunk.
No, they wouldn't.
And it is kind of part and parcel, not just of who we are, but as Powell Frith captured it, of who we always were. I love what it says about Britain, and I kind of do slightly reel back in horror at us as well, because, you know,
we always.
This race and this painting will always be popular because of what it says about British society, and I'm sure in 100 years' time, the Epsom Derby will continue to inspire.
We was had.